Hi, Lee.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Good, buddy.
I like the ASMR intro. Let's do the whole episode like it's sleepy time.
Lee, I'm just gonna.
Everybody, next up, I'm gonna rub my balls on the microphone. You can just listen at home.
I hope this helps you sleep. Putting my nads on the mic and then count to 1,000. So, buddy, any new celebrity camel toe updates from your show that you got going on? Anything?
Yeah, well, I think the Young Turks has ended their series, Celebrity Camel Toe. So I'm thinking of picking it up where they left off. You know, the new season. I figure it's forgive the expression, up for grabs right now. So I'm gonna start my own.
Well, I'm starting a force the vote for sex with animals, since that's a big thing Cenk was about. So I want to keep that going.
I'm aware that. I'm aware. So Gray Zone put together a great, Max and some others put together a great edit of the Young Turks acting like they don't like toxic material and then cutting it together with all their toxic material. But I know that some of it's like out of context, but what the fuck was I think it should be legal to like lick your dog off? Like,
I was literally like, you know, yeah, I guess so. Cenk is just a sex creep, or is that what we're going to? Is that just the conclusion we have to come to? Like, there's numerous clips. I mean, unless he was just like saying that to be like facetious or what, I don't know. But it's like, man, and talking about Britney's coochie and Anna going, yeah, girls, don't bring your coochie near married men. Like, unreal.
Well, and also bizarrely being like, oh, Britney's old nasty cooch, which was like, I mean, besides the fact that she's still young, but this was like 10 years ago or 7 years ago or something. And it's like, well, you're not even accurate. It'd be one thing if you were like insulting and accurate. That would be offensive in another way. But it's like, you're just making up things to insult someone that are completely false.
Yeah, and you're just doing that like, oh, let's pile on a celebrity. Just like TMZ. How are you better than TMZ? And hey, Anna, you know, you're going through the aging process as we all are. Would you like somebody just talking about you this way?
Yeah,
like,
but still, Britney was like 32 when they were doing that, or 31 or something. It's like, anyway, I mean, that's not really the point. The point is, what the fuck were they doing? I mean, it's bizarre. It's bizarre. They're bizarre. I don't know what they are.
I don't know. I was like, I felt bad. Like, oh God, all those times I was on aggressive progressives. I mean, I had no idea TYT had done all that kind of awful Howard Stern shock jock nonsense. Like, I was like, wow, that's, I mean, so it really reveals kind of who they are in the sense of like, oh, the whole time from the get-go, it's just been about getting clicks and likes, whatever it is. So we'll talk about celebrity camel toe. Does that get clicks? We'll do that. Oh, we're going to go Bernie. Bernie will get his clicks. Oh, we'll do that. Oh, we'll endorse Hillary. Will that get us clicks? We'll do that. Oh, we'll go after Jimmy. Well, we don't care. We don't care. We don't care. I mean, obviously Anna has no morals to be Armenian and on a channel called The Young Turks. I mean, it's just,
yeah, I think I must just come down to the clicks and a little part of this I did realize back then. I didn't know they were doing celebrity camel toe, but I did realize that they were doing a lot of kind of vapid, like clickbaity stuff. And it's still, I did a video on this the other day. It still continues today because like I went to their page yesterday, whatever it was, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. And it was like the top 5 videos. I don't mean most watched. I mean, just for the last 5 they put up were like, man swallowed by whale, T-ball fight breaks out. And like, so most of their videos are kind of vapid nonsense, which is fine if you're marketing yourself as I talk about vapid nonsense,
right?
But that's not who they claim to be. And then, and so I had realized that even back when I was on, and I interrupted one of the shows I was on. They were, we were talking about fucking non-stories, and I was like, what is this? The world is burning down, and we're talking about what? And And Jank did a little laugh and he goes, I agree with you. And then he pivoted back to the vapid nonsense. And then they used my clip as like part of their promo, as if what I was saying was something they agree with. But it was like, no, I was talking about you.
Yeah, it's I guess that's who they've always been. And some people are like, hey, we need to move on and there's other things to talk about, which I agree. There's serious stuff going on, but it is valid because they do need to be exposed because of the shit they're smearing Jimmy for is unreal. And Aaron Matei is like, sorry, you need to be exposed as liar, vapid, clickbaity, sensationalist, TMZ. Don't give me this we're real journalist crap. Just cut the crap and don't take the moral high ground. And you know, Anna is lying and accusing Jimmy of these things and weaponizing. You know, this she's what she's doing is this women that are actually sexually harassed in the workplace. She's making it harder on them. You know,
it dilutes. I mean, that is a scary aspect of it. It dilutes sexual harassment because. I mean, what I've heard, I haven't followed every play-by-play, but it was, you know, a comment that she didn't like, and then he apologized for it, and it's like, and then she uses that as a secret, like, blackmail card.
7 years later.
7 years later, and it's like, that's the polar opposite of what should be happening in our society in order to stop sexual harassment. It should be like, if it happens, the woman feels empowered and capable and people are there to help, call it out and deal with it, rather than like this thing I'm going to use as blackmail when I really need to, and I'm going to email it privately and tell them I'm preparing to use it to attack them, and so never mention me again. Like, anyway, it totally turns it into this toxic weaponization.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, that whole scenario wasn't even accurate as well, because it wasn't like Jimmy was her boss. She was Jimmy's boss. She's the producer of that show. She could have said, he's never coming on the set again. He's done. She could have said that. He's done, you know? And first of all, his comment was like, nice news skirt, meaning you're dressing inappropriately. It was not sexual at all. And then she uses that. It's reprehensible what she's done. And, you know, I've talked to some people, friends of mine that work in human resources, and I've even had fans put in the chat, if a woman were to dress the way she was dressing to work, the human resources person would go, hey, you can't wear that. You need to wear more appropriate work attire. You can't come in here with like a nightclub dress.
It really does depend on the outlet. I remember I was on Fox News twice. One time was the time that I ensured I never was invited back, where I called them a parade of propaganda. But the first time was not live, so I knew I couldn't just go all out because they just cut it out because it wasn't live. Right. So I was softer that first time. But I was in there with several of the news women that were about to go on, and they were in skirts that were like non-existent. You know, it's like a napkin, and they were discussing who gets the leg shot, meaning they knew they were going to be at this circular half circle couch, and the camera, which zooms around, like practically shoots up their skirts. And their discussion was who wants the leg shot. And that's because in Fox News, that was the norm. That was like what you were expected to do. You wear non-existent clothing and you sit on the edge of the couch and we shoot the camera at your legs. And so it depends on the outlet, you know, whether that's what they're doing or not, you know?
Yeah. And I doubt any of those women were producers like Anna Kasparian is. Right. You know, right. Like where an argument can be made, hey, they had to play ball or otherwise they'd lose their job. Jimmy was a panelist they would invite on their show. So yeah, it's all complete nonsense. But I'm glad they're being exposed, and I'm glad Gray Zone. And when you sent me that email of like that video with the RIP, it was like, wow, they're just going down in a ball of flames, and they're doubling down on their lies and hypocrisy and bullshit rather than admit, oh, we're parasites or we're assholes. They're never going to admit that.
I know. It'd be like there is another world where they dealt with this appropriately, and they like said, you know, look, we've we've gotten some things wrong, and we used to be this shock jock show, and what we said back then is now seen in a different light. And they could have made some sort of apology. And furthermore, Cenk could be like, hey, I now don't support bombing in Syria. I used to support bombing Syria. I've changed my mind because I've become aware of new facts. Like, he could have done that. Instead, they have doubled down on ignoring that the shit they've said, they actually said. And, Cenk's doing interviews all over the place saying he's being accused of supporting bombing Syria when he never said that. It's just straight lies. And then you can cut that together with a video of him saying it. So right. It's like the level of hypocrisy is, fucking mind numbing.
Well, they keep making it worse. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I got this wrong. I was on the wrong side of this. I mean, I've done that on this show. I was on the, I mean, somebody brought
if
up,
you're doing it a lot, then there's something deeper wrong. But yeah, what were you going to say you did on this show?
I was just going to say, I mean, I'm against nuclear energy. I don't want to hear about it. It's awful. It's wrong for the planet. I don't want to hear about it. And someone was like calm and reasonable and said, Graham, there's this thorium, it's the way it's done. And they explained the process to me. And of course, Nixon got rid of the safe, clean version because he wanted the version that could be used weaponized. And he's like, so there is atomic plants that are completely clean. They can't blow up. They can't do any of those. And I was like, oh, I had the guy in my show and I said I was wrong. I got that wrong. I was fed the wrong information, and you presented a reasonable fact or facts, and I was
I'll admit I know nothing about that, so I will refrain from commenting.
Yeah, exactly.
I was from being wrong right now.
Yeah, just go do your own research and go, oh wow. And it should be like a government secret. It's again of course we got rid of the clean way of using atomic power in favor of the dirty, horrific way that destroys the planet. Because
I will say that sounds like us. That sounds like our procedure.
That playbook I'm familiar with, actually.
Yes, the whole eliminating the electric car, eliminating the trolley system. That sounds like us.
That's right up our alley. That's right up the alley of Government Secrets, episode 47. What's we happened, Grandma?
Dude, knew the number off the top. You were on the ball today.
I read an email, so it was really exciting.
Cool.
I did a lot of research before this episode.
I read an email.
So today we're going to talk about the Nixon's war on drugs, which we wanted to talk about last week, and then you're going to talk about the 50th anniversary of Kent State, and they're relatable. They're so relatable.
They are the same time period. Although, just to clarify, it doesn't. The war on drugs ends up, the story we're going to tell ends up being about Nixon, but really we're talking about the beginning of the modern war on drugs.
Right.
There were efforts before, such as prohibition, to go after various substances, but the beginning of our modern war on drugs that has put millions upon millions of people in prison started under Nixon. Yeah.
Oh, Lee, you froze up.
Am I back?
You're back. Say that again.
Oh, I was just going to say that it started under Nixon, but it really is the beginning of the modern war on drugs period.
Oh, Tricky Dick. Not the first time we've had that splendorous name spoken on this fantastic program.
He would be viewed nowadays. He'd be viewed as like almost a Bernie Sanders, like almost that left wing. Like he'd be in the squad. Nixon would be a squad member.
I stand here defending Mama Bear.
He'd be like, let's have an environmental protection agency. And Fox News would be, that fucking hippie wants to ruin industry.
He hates the American worker. That's why he's starting this goddamn commune called the Environmental Protection Agency with a bunch of dope smoking long hairs. So yes, this is our first segment. Let me bring this up. I know you have the slide. So this is the Sunday, June 17th, was the 47th anniversary of the war on drugs. He declared that what was the government's longest and costliest war. At a press conference on that day in 1971, Nixon identified drug abuse as public enemy number one in the United States and launched a failed, costly, and inhumane federal war on Americans that continues today. Early the following year, Nixon created the Office of Drug Abuse and Law Enforcement, ODALE. Jesus, come on, Nixon. Get a better acronym, better branding. In January 72, to wage a government war on otherwise peaceful and innocent Americans who voluntarily chose to ingest plants, weeds, and intoxicants proscribed by the government. In July 73, ODALE was consolidated along with several other federal drug agencies. Boy, anytime we start consolidating agencies, it's always good for the average American, isn't it? When we start just
when fucking no-neck steroidal assholes get together into larger groups, it's always useful.
It is no-neck steroidal assholes.
is your old band, right?
No, I wasn't going to make the band joke. I was going to say that was the name of my doctoral thesis. Was that?
I was not going to make the band joke.
I was not going to do the band joke, Lee. But I was not going to let that series of words go. Just move on to the next. I
wasn't going to let that word collection just fly by.
Yeah, like some guy late for his Grubhub delivery. I was going to stop that and let us all unpack it and enjoy it.
Let's unpack Lee Camp's poetry.
One sonnet at a time. So ODALE was consolidated along with several other federal drug agencies into the newly established DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency. Oh,
our old friends.
It's like a domestic CIA. You know what I mean? It's just good. It's good stuff that also then can operate on foreign soil with a kind of vague jurisdictional rules. Yeah.
They can kind of do whatever the fuck they want.
It was considered a super agency. Oh, super. So it's like the Justice League.
Just like that. No, it's more like it's more like the stormtroopers. Like it's the Empire.
It's the Empire. We're folding the stormtroopers into the overall Death Star security detail.
We've gotten all the Siths together, and they're going to join the stormtroopers, and it's going to be under one umbrella organization. Because the bureaucracy here in the Empire is a real problem. It's a lot of paperwork.
We want to streamline it, and so we're going to just have the Emperor kind of oversee everything. As he uses his witchcraft to murder people.
Yeah, not all of us have the Force, so we can't all sign paper from a distance, and so it's a very slow process. But we got them all under this umbrella. If we got the Sith together with the sisterhood of the traveling pants, if we got them all together, and they could, this would all move more smoothly.
That actually, Lee, is a fantastic band name. Now let's say what's fair is what's fair. That's a fantastic band name. Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. God damn it, I would see that band tonight if they were playing. All right. So as we created this super agency to handle all aspects of the war on otherwise peaceful Americans, but as we uncover on this fine programming Government Secrets, the government says one thing: oh, drugs are out of control. No. Tricky Dick had his real reasons, and this was John Ehrlichman, one of the fine people in the Nixon administration, was Nixon's counsel and assistant to domestic affairs, revealed in 1994, he said this in an interview, the real public enemy in 71 wasn't really drugs or drug abuse, but rather the enemies of Nixon administration were the anti-war left and blacks. And the war on drugs was designed as an evil, deceptive, and sinister policy to wage a war on those two groups. In the article on April 2016 issue of The Atlantic, titled Legalize It All, How to Win the War on Drugs, author-reporter Dan Baum explains how John Ehrlichman, the Watergate co-conspirator, unlocked for me one of the great mysteries of modern American history. How did the United States entangle itself in a policy of drug prohibition that has yielded so much misery and so few good results? This is basically what Ehrlichman said. Let me scroll down here. And actually, should we put the graphic up?
Yeah. Do you have it, or you want me to look for it?
I think I've got it. I can put it up for sure. Wait, I thought I had it. What happened?
Parts that'll be cut out of the podcast for 100, Alex.
All right, here. Well, yeah, here are the slides. I got the slideshow. All right, I'll do that. There it is. Well, no, that's what no, it's better when you do it for some reason. How come when I do it, it's fucked up?
All right, hold on. I have to hit share and then I can give it to you. Yeah, for some reason, because you have master control, it like fucks yours up.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. This is what Ehrlichman said. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we knew we were lying about drugs? Of course we did. And
yeah, that really summed up. I mean, this was an admission of kind of what people knew, but especially activists knew, but it never been said publicly. So it was a big deal because it was finally admitted.
It was finally admitted. And what this does, this actually, I mean, this folds in several government secrets that we've done. How Hollywood is told what to do. So you watch a cop show. I mean, when I was a kid in the 70s, I loved watching cop shows. Dope smoking hippies were always like, hey, man, they were always out of control. Blacks and hippies were doing heroin. Black people were always depicted as criminals or drug dealers or gang members or whatever. And
at the very least, they were standing in a dimly lit corner wearing like a leather jacket or something. And just in suburban white America, you just knew that means up to no good.
Up to no good. So this campaign, I mean, we've talked about how the government has used the entertainment industry and entertainment media to foster these beliefs. So this was fostered not just on the nightly news, but in movies and TV shows. So that was just like drugs were the problem. You know, hippies were the out of control. I remember watching episodes of Adam 12 and the hippies were just like out of control, you know, and then when you've got actual, and then you got like Charles Manson, then any long hair was then lumped into this. Oh, they're probably psycho cult murderers like Charles Manson or whatever.
Right.
So, and they're all smoking those crazy drugs that make them go. The drugs make them go like, the
drugs, they sold drugs as if they made you want to murder people for no reason, when in fact, most drugs make people actually far more peaceful. Like there's not a lot of, whereas alcohol, people want to get in fights. There's not a lot of people getting in fights on weed.
Right. Or psychedelics or whatever.
Right.
They're just, they didn't want that. And so again, I mean, this is not the first time that we've done a government secret where they went after the anti-war left. What? That's never happened in America. We don't do that here. We let people, we let dissent have a voice. And again, the war on drugs, just another, piece of the systemic racism puzzle that has just been institutional systemic racism. The war, I mean, literally, John Ehrlichman admitted the war on drugs was to put black people behind bars back in 1971.
Yeah, and yeah, they knew they could. It gave them, reasonable cause or whatever, so they could just send the police into any meeting of activists, and then they could just, dump coke on them and be like, "We found coke." Like it was just an easy way to arrest or, just interrupt any kind of working together. They were able to raid, Black Panther offices and all that stuff and say they found drugs. I mean, it was perfect for them.
Yeah. And this is how they use it. If you go to the next slide,
yeah,
you'll see, well, no, go, we'll go before that. Yes. All right. So this one is critical, because what this goes into is the, what the result of this happened. So when this happened, this increased the male incarceration rate during the 50-year period between 1925 and the early 70s. The male incarceration rate was remarkably stable, around 200 men per 100,000 population, or 1 male per 500, according to data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. By 1986, about a decade after the war on drugs started locking up drug users and dealers in cages, the male incarceration rate doubled to 400 per 1,000 population. Then within another decade, the male incarceration rate doubled again to more than 800. And by 1996, before reaching a historic peak of 956 in 2008, about 1 in 100, that was almost 5 times higher than the stable rate before the war on drugs. The arrest and incarceration data show that the war on drugs had significantly much greater negative effect on blacks and Hispanics than whites, making the drug even more shameful for its devastating and disproportionate adverse effects on America's most vulnerable and disadvantaged populations.
Yeah, and for those listening to this and not watching, the graph just shows that the incarceration rate of men shoots up after 1970.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. It just shoots up. And it's come down a little bit since 2016 because a lot of states have decriminalized marijuana. But it's come down. I mean, it came down from almost 1,000 to now it's, quote, down to about just 800 per 100,000 people. So it's like we've just we're still the largest prison state in the world, and also per capita. So the percent of people locked up is the largest in the world still, even with it coming down a bit. Right. Which again is probably another reason the private prison industry is actively blocking the decriminalization of marijuana on a federal level, because they're going to lose money.
Yeah.
And again, this was part of the warrant. Why this is significant too is that this was the precursor to the private prison industry. There wasn't a lot of private prisons back then. And because of this, it's like, oh, wow, there's a whole new marketplace. We need more jails because we've been arresting people for smoking a plant.
Yeah. And something to remember is that beyond just the private prisons, because, Biden and Obama got a lot of credit for saying they're, ending federal private prisons, but that is a tiny, tiny percentage of private prisons, but it's also an even smaller percentage. It's, whatever it is, 1 or 3% or something of prisoners in general in the country. So it is, beyond federal private prisons, but people make tons of money off of our public prisons, off of our prisons that are not private as well. So there are corporations that are in charge of, let's say, the phone calls prisoners make, the uniforms, all the prison labor, all that shit. People make tons of money off of our regular prisons as well. So it's just something that, if especially if you're an activist and you care about how insane our incarceration is, it's good to remember that there are a lot of people making a lot of money off of prisons, both private and not private.
There's a really good movie, again, back in the 70s before the corporations completely took over Hollywood, starring Robert Redford, called Brubaker, where he goes undercover in a prison And again, it's not a private prison. This is in the like late 70s when this movie came out, maybe early 80s, 81, 82, somewhere in there. And he uncovers all this prison corruption of their funneling money. You know, they're giving the prisoners crappy food, and the money that the good food, they're reselling it. Like there's this whole scandal that he uncovers in that movie, Brubaker. Also, you know, Shawshank Redemption showed how that went down. And then, of course,
Shawshank Redemption is one of my favorite documentaries of all time. Really.
It's a great doc. It's a really good doc. And then Orange is the New Black. Obviously, that series had a very scathing critique of the prison. And they become there was corruption, and then they become a private prison, and you see all of it in there. And it's based on a woman's actual book. So. And
but it was also hilarious. So
it was.
Let's remember, in prison there were a lot of funny antics.
A lot of hijinks behind bars, Lee.
Yep.
A lot of hijinks. I mean, Dead Man Walking, great comedy, and just a fun movie, kids movie. It's just fun. So, and then show the last slide. This is my favorite slide.
Yes, this is important.
There's the Elvis, the king of rock and roll, visiting the White House, and Nixon gave him like, you're our drug, you know, commando or whatever. Nixon gives him some.
It says he sought to become an official federal agent in the war on drugs, which is so amazing. Not just because it's Elvis, but because Elvis did loads of drugs.
Look at his eyes in the photo. He's fucking on drugs right now in that photo. He's like probably taking 5 Percocets or Benzedrines or whatever the shit the guy was taking legally. He was a drug addict.
I thought he was snorting 14-year-old girls.
There was as long as they were covered in codeine. I mean, literally, he would like, and his stuff was all prescription. He was taking like Percocets and all this crazy shit. And you look, and that's why late in his career, he puts on all this weight, which is I was told a side effect of taking those types of drugs. And then his eyes were always glassy and he was out of it. I mean, he died of basically a drug overdose.
Right. And it can, gaining weight can be a side effect. Cause also if you're truly fucked up, then you're like, what's another cake? You know, right. In the scope of things, come on.
What's another bacon wrapped Twinkie? I mean, what's another peanut butter and banana sandwiches or whatever crazy shit he would eat?
I just snorted an entire spree packet of Percocet. So, you know, this cake is really not my problem. This is
what's wrong with another Percocet cake? You know what I mean? Just a Perca cake. So that's what this is so insane. And, you know,
but to me, other than laughing at that moment of Nixon heralding Elvis as a drug czar or whatever, is to me, the root of this is like rich white people are fine in the drug war in most regards. Like, you know, fucking Larry Kudlow, who became the Treasury Secretary under Trump, he's had $100,000 a month cocaine habit, which I don't know how you even spend that much on cocaine. But and here's the thing: I think drugs should be decriminalized. So I'm not like, hey, he did drugs. What a fucking loser. My thing is, don't be a hypocrite. If you're gonna, these people are doing tons of drugs and then turning around and arresting people in the lower classes for doing drugs. So it's just breathtaking hypocrisy.
Oh my God. There's black men in jail for literally smoking a plant. And then Rush Limbaugh, how come he's not in prison? Oh, because he's a rich white guy.
Well, you know what I mean? Also, the corpse would smell a bit at this point. But if you mean before his death, I guess.
I thought they kept him alive in a cryo chamber.
But no, he did, you know, Rush Limbaugh went deaf because of his, you know, Oxycontin addiction or whatever. And meanwhile, he's screaming about black people, how they don't know how to raise their kids or whatever the fuck.
Right. It's just typical of that. And he can get away with that. And yeah, you definitely see this basically race and class war is what this war on drugs, like any war, that's what's really behind it. It's actually race and a class war.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So if you're poor, and if especially a poor working class person of color, oh man, you're getting locked up for sure. You're wealthy and white, and you're going to get a slap on the wrist. You're going to get a don't do that again, get cleaned up, and that's how that works.
And some of this you can look at, when it's in the courts, you can see that a white guy, especially a wealthy white guy with good lawyers, have been caught with tons of cocaine and generally get off of going to prison. So some of it's in the courts, but think about the amount that happens just in cops pulling people over. They pull someone over because they're driving erratically, and they find out it's a white kid who's half drunk, and they leave him alone. They find out it's a black kid. Well, now let's search the car. Now let's get him on something. Now, it's just the amount that goes on. It would blow anyone's mind. But of course, there's no numbers on it.
Oh, a rich white guy in a luxury car gets pulled over and he's got cocaine. They're going to give him a moving violation, and they're going to let the cocaine slide or whatever.
Right.
Or, oh, he only had this a little bit. A black guy has the same amount. It's like, oh, intent to distribute. He's a drug dealer. And it's like, what? So now he gets 20 years and the white guy gets 6 months probation or whatever.
Or they'll shake the white guy down for a stock tip or something. Just tell us what to short next week.
Tell us what to short. Yeah, that's what the guy goes, I'll get you this. I'll get you courtside tickets to the Lakers, and here's a stock tip. And they're like, all right, cool, you're off the hook. Well, that's that segment. Let's go to our next segment, Lee Camp, Government Secret Segment 2. Another anniversary of what happened at Kent State, which again kind of ties into the first segment because it's like, oh, let's go nightstick hippies,
Yep, same time periods, a lot of the same issues. Didn't even intend it that way, but these things happen. And yeah, so here's the thing. If we were to just go on anniversaries of horrible, massacres and catastrophes and government atrocities in the United States, there's too many anniversaries every week. So we can't really get to them all. So the Kent State one happened 2 months ago, but we haven't had time to get to it till now. So it was May 4th. It was 51 years since Kent State. So a year ago was 50th anniversary of Kent State. And here's a little background on where the nation was, because this is important into why this happened. The Vietnam War had escalated under John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson before Richard Nixon took office. Under Johnson, the number of American troops in Vietnam soared from 16,000 to more than 500,000 in 1968, but with no tangible results. And we've talked about that before, where it was, the goal of Vietnam was basically how many can you kill, and it didn't change anything. When Nixon was elected in 1968, he promised to end the conflict. However, in November 1969, the My Lai massacre by American troops of between 347 and 504 civilians. I mean, they basically just destroyed and burnt down the entire village. It was exposed, which heightened opposition, especially among younger people around the country. The nature of military participation also changed on December 1969, when the first draft lottery since World War II took place. And honestly, we'd have a completely different view of war in this country if we had a draft, because it largely hits both poor and rich classes. Obviously, the rich have more tricks and tactics to get out of it, but not all of them get out of it. And you have a lot of middle class going. So it basically, everybody ends up with a dog in the race. Whereas right now, you have kind of an economic draft where people are almost exclusively, with few exceptions, signing up to be able to afford college or to, be able to afford some sort of life.
Oh, we haven't had a draft since Vietnam because of it spurned all these protests, like you're saying. So it's like, and after 9/11, I remember what if there's a draft? And I remember talking to some people that were in their 20s, and I said, you could be drafted. And they're like, what? And I said, that's why we won't have one. Because all these people who weren't paying attention would have been like, I am going, there's no way I'm going to go fight in Iraq. There's no way. And that's why we haven't had one. And like you said, we've had economic conscription. And when I went over there, 04, 06, 07 in Afghanistan, 07, 08, and 2011 in Iraq, especially
to perform.
Let's
be clear.
Yes, to tell jokes. I am not.
I just didn't want people thinking you were a 7-tour veteran.
Yes, 7 comedy tours. So
wouldn't it be funny if there was somebody literally going around doing interview after interview saying he did 7 tours of Iraq, never mentioning it was
an entertainer. And I was with a secret dick joke brigade that we would do night drops of dick jokes.
Yeah.
But I remember talking to these guys, and they'd be like, these were guys in their mid to late 20s who were like, this is my second or third deployment in like 2007, 2008. And I was like, really? They're like, oh, I came here for the money. I was like, really? Yeah, I got a $20,000 reenlistment bonus. And they tell me there was no jobs back in whatever small town they lived in. There's a Walmart, and there's dealing Oxycontin, or there's, working in the KFC. Like, those are the jobs, or the military. So you go to the military, and it's
you got to deal the Oxycontin out of the KFC. It's, 2 jobs.
That's the kind of value meal I'm on board with. An Elvis KFC pack. That must be the Elvis super value meal. Just Elvis the Percocet. So yeah, I saw that all the time. I saw the economic conscription happen in real time. And I saw, recruiters, and this is still accurate today. They don't go to private schools. They're going to inner city schools. They're not, the private schools where the rich kids go. They don't go there.
I was in Coney Island once. I think it was the only time I went to Coney Island, like, while I was actually, I was there after Hurricane Sandy to help people, but the only time I was there where it was like, an active amusement park day, I remember they had a recruitment booth, but it seemed like a lot of people didn't notice it was a recruitment booth. And it was basically a pull-up challenge, and they'd set up pull-up bars and challenge young men to see. And you got to think about this calculation. Like, first of all, they know that Coney Island is mainly lower class people in New York and Long Island and elsewhere. Like, it's more that than the upper class coming to Coney Island. On top of that, the pull-up challenge gets all these, guys who want to prove their strength and their toughness, and they go and do these pull-ups. And then the recruiter's standing there and goes, wow, man, you did 20 pull-ups. That's awesome. We could really use someone like you in the force. Here's all the brochures. Here's how awesome it is. Here's how much money we're going to give you. And, it's just a way to, trick these guys into signing on to the military.
I remember career day at my high school, and they were there, and, they came up to guys like me who are on the football team and like, you're officer material.
Yeah.
They'd say shit like that to me, man.
Yeah.
And I was like, and wow. And they take this test, and it's the easiest test ever. And I got 100% on it. And they're like, yeah, man.
They're like, oh my God, no one's gotten 100 on this test in 32 years.
Yep. I remember all of that. Anyway.
So yeah, there were protests popping off, obviously, all during this time. On April 10th, 1970, Jerry Rubin, who is, well known for his work in the Yippies and with Abby Hoffman, he spoke on campus. In remarks reported locally, he said, quote, "The first part of the Yippie program is to kill your parents. They are the first oppressors." So, brilliant satire. But 2 weeks after that, Bill Anthrell, an SDS member and former student, distributed flyers to an event in which he said he was going to napalm a dog. The event turned out to be an anti-napalm teach-in. So, the stuff they were doing back then to like get people's attention was pretty brilliant. But anyway, I think there should be more threatening to napalm dogs and then teaching people how harmful our shit is.
Because everyone will go nuts if you say, I want to napalm. We should start drone striking dogs. Americans go, what? You're not doing that to Mr. Frumples. Then we go, see, Axel Jones.
You remember they were trying to talk everybody into bombing the fuck out of Afghanistan, and it didn't seem like it was like working enough. So then they started like releasing video of like dogs in kennels and saying it was the Taliban gassing dogs.
Right.
And everybody was like, now I'm down with invading.
Yeah, if you could get some footage of our drones killing dogs, Americans might want to stop war. When we kill, poor people of color, it doesn't seem to matter. Like if the war in Yemen killed 85,000 dogs, Americans would lose their shit. 85,000 kids. Well,
yeah. I mean,
Obama wasn't perfect.
The kids should have thought about who they were hanging out with. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
that's pretty clear.
At least Obama got us gay marriage.
So, city officials and downtown businesses received threats, and rumors proliferated that radical revolutionaries were in Kent to destroy the city and the university. Mm-hmm. Several merchants reported they were told that if they did not display anti-war slogans, their businesses would be burned down. Yeah, this doesn't sound similar to the anti Black Lives Matter shit that's gone around, right?
No, we haven't heard that exact language just like in the last week. No, I mean that hasn't happened at all.
Yeah,
we have just heard that socialists are now on the terror watch list. We haven't heard that at all.
Yeah, that was leaked from a military document. But yeah, Kent's police chief told the mayor that according to a reliable informant, I'm sure, the ROTC building, the local army recruiting station, and and post office had been targeted for destruction that night. There were unconfirmed reports of rumors of students with caches of arms, plots to spike the local water supply with LSD, and of the students building tunnels for the purpose of blowing up the town's main store. Because of the rumors and threats, Mayor Satram feared that local officials would not be able to handle future disturbances. Following the meeting, Satram made the decision to call Rhodes and request, I think that's the governor maybe, and request that the National Guard be sent to Kent, a request that was granted immediately. So, part of this is like, COINTELPRO, misinformation put out by the government, the FBI, etc., maybe even the police, and, misinformation that then allows them to do things like get warrants and attack people and arrest people and hold people. But also when you're putting out that kind of disinformation, you then have people that just rumors spread and then people believe their own rumors. So you have the mayor believing something that was probably started by the FBI.
Yeah, for sure. This definitely sounds like an FBI COINTELPRO shit where they're like, yeah, get everybody scared that the radicals are coming to napalm their dogs and, put LSD in the water. So little Johnny and Susie and Grandma Jane are going to become psyched out hippies on a drug crazed rampage, because that's what we were told LSD does, turns you into just a bloodthirsty, sex pirate or whatever they told you that it made. So they get everybody, fear always works. So everyone's fear, they're coming. Oh, so we're going to need the National Guard.
Yeah,
it's weird. I have a quick question here. All of that intelligence saying all those things, it all sounds not as bad as 100,000 people, many of them with guns, are going to go to the Capitol on January 6th. And yet doesn't it seem like that would have required, if this lesser thing gets the National Guard, wouldn't then we're showing up with guns and it's on social media and we say we're gun owners?
Well, you got to remember, Graham, socialists are equivalent to neo-Nazis. So, if like one socialist is like 100 neo-Nazis.
Right, because I don't know what words are. Sure, thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's I mean, if someone says they're going to get people health care, like that's essentially a terrorist threat.
It really is. Free college is the same thing as putting LSD in your dog's napalm bowl or whatever. It's the same. It's the same thing.
Precisely. So the decision to call in the National Guard was made. Because you know what'll always solve these problems when you've got like a bunch of people standing up and furious, and like a government that's not responding, and meanwhile is sending them overseas to fight a people that they have no, reason to be killing. What always helps is to just insert a bunch of young idiots with guns. If you just ship them in, fly them in, parachute them down, then like. Idiots with guns, it always helps a problem.
The lack of training with a weapon, the better. Pretty much, right? Like the lack of intelligence, like just give a gun for everybody and just hope they shoot straight, I think is what we should keep doing in America, because it seems to work. I mean, by the way, just here in LA County, we're 200 more shootings from a year ago. Last year at this time, we had about 430, 440 shootings. This year, we're about 650. So it's really good.
I mean, that's insane. And I love that in this discussion about how crime and shooting has gone up, Fox News wants to act like it's all because the police have been all defunded, when none of the police have been defunded. And the U.S. still has the largest police budget in the world by about all of the billions of dollars. No one wants to mention that maybe it's because we have just gone through a pandemic where everybody's lost their jobs and is desperate and is behind on their rent by about a year. And all the evictions are going to begin soon. And so people's lives are destroyed and they don't know what to do. And people make dumb decisions when they're behind the eight ball like that.
Yeah. And millions of guns were purchased just during the pandemic. That couldn't be. That has nothing to do with it. That has nothing to do with it. There's nothing to do with it at all. It's just the term defund the police created that.
Yep. Just the term, even though it didn't happen, just the idea caused a lot of people to run out and shoot people.
Yes.
So the decision calling the National Guard was made at 5 p.m. The Guard did not arrive in town that evening until 10 p.m. By that time, a large demonstration was underway on the campus, and the ROTC, which is the Reserve Officers Training Corps building, was burning. The arsonists were never apprehended, and no one was injured in the fire. On Monday, May 4th, so this is the following day, a protest was scheduled to be held at noon, as had been planned 3 days earlier. University officials attempted to ban the gathering, handing out 12,000 leaflets saying the event was canceled, despite it not being canceled. And despite their efforts, 2,000 people still showed up on the university commons. National Guard, the units on the campus grounds, attempted to disperse the students. Just before noon, the Guard returned and again ordered the crowd to disperse. When most of the crowd refused, the Guard used tear gas. Because of the wind, the tear gas had little effect in dispersing the crowd. That's always the best, when you get to watch the tear gas blow back on the cops or the National Guard. There's no sweeter time in life. When it became clear that the crowd was not going to disperse, a group of 77 National Guard troops from A Company and Troop G, with bayonets fixed on their rifles, began to advance upon the hundreds of, let's remember, unarmed students. So there was a back and forth where they kind of chased them around the field a little, like pushed them one way, and then the students came back and they pushed them back. And anyway, at 12:24, according to eyewitnesses, a sergeant named Myron Pryor turned and began firing at the crowd of students with his .45 pistol. A number of guardsmen nearest the students also turned and fired their rifles at the students. Again, the students are unarmed. In all, at least 29 of the 77 guardsmen claimed to have fired their weapons using an estimated 67 bullets. The shooting was determined to have lasted 13 seconds, although some said it felt like a minute or more. The adjutant, so four people died. Let's see if I have this image. There's a famous image of that one. Famous image of right afterwards. The adjutant general of the Ohio National Guard told reporters that a sniper had fired on the guardsmen, which remains a debated allegation, and there's no evidence of it that I've ever heard of. Many guardsmen later testified that they were in fear for their lives from these unarmed
college kids.
Yep. Which was questioned partly because of the distance between them and the students killed or wounded. Yeah, they weren't even surrounded by the unarmed students. They were distant from them. Time magazine later concluded that the triggers were not pulled accidentally at Kent State. So this, you can remove the image. This is when, this is the part that gets more into the secret. Much of what I've gone through is common knowledge, but what our government hasn't acknowledged and what a lot of people don't want to talk about is that there very well may have been an order to fire on these students. Some of this is from a Nation article. Questions have once again been raised regarding the events of the infamous 1970 Kent State shootings. A 2010 analysis of an audio recording taken during the shootings has raised questions. At the request of Cleveland's plain dealer, New Jersey-based audio experts enhanced and evaluated the tape made by Terry Straub, a Kent alumnus, who recorded the events with a microphone from his dorm window. The recording suggests that someone may have ordered National Guardsmen to fire on the student protesters, though officers denied giving such a command. After removing extraneous noises to clarify the voices, Allen and Owen, the sound experts, observed such exclamations as "guard," followed quickly by the command, "prepare to fire." A half dozen. So that's one thing that is kind of heavily covered up, is that they very well may have been ordered to fire on these unarmed protesters, as opposed to the longtime story, which is, these young 19-year-old guardsmen heard a pop and thought it was a gun, and they had to defend themselves from the pop they heard. So
we don't know what.
The only way to do that is to fire 67 bullets at the students.
That's all yeah. I mean, the more we do this show, the more we uncover the CIA and the FBI, the more it seems very realistic that they concocted this whole thing just to help further demonize the kids, the hippies, the lefties. It goes right in line with the first segment we did. That the war on drugs was not about drug problems. It was about keeping the anti-war left and black people, getting them out of the way for Nixon.
Yeah. And the ongoing argument afterwards was, look, these National Guard are kids, they're 19. They didn't know what was happening. They feared for their lives. It's just a child. Which is funny because you fucking put him in a uniform, gave him a gun, and told him he's a man who's going to save the country. And then when something goes wrong, quote unquote wrong, if it wasn't ordered, which it sounds like it was, you go, it was a child. How did he get a gun? How did that child get a gun? Who knows what happened? But yeah. but it has come out, and this is another covered up aspect of this, that most of these guard were not children. So a half dozen of the part-time guardsmen involved in the shootings were employed in the law enforcement field. 2 of the 8 guardsmen indicted by the U.S. Justice Department in 1973 were police or deputy sheriffs. The guard captain who testified falsely of finding a gun on the body of a slain student worked as a police detective. Enlisted men were in their mid-20s. Officers were even a decade older than that. The sergeant who many believe prompted the shootings was 39, the same age as the lieutenant colonel. Their general, whose poor decisions contributed to the day's fatal outcome, was 55. If an order to fire was given to the troops, as the latest evidence shows, the officer most likely giving the command was 43. So their kids, they couldn't have known what to do is horseshit.
Yes. Yes. More bullshit from this concocted thing. And of course, of the 4 people weren't some other ones that they weren't even at the protest, right? Wasn't there some people that?
Yeah. I forgot to mention that. Of the 4 killed, 2 of them weren't even part of the protest. They were walking through the school because this was a heavily trafficked area. And one of them was, I believe, in ROTC or something. Let's see. He was a member of the campus ROTC battalion. Yeah.
Wow. That's
And I'll just give one more final kind of covered up piece of this, which is many have said, look, it had the intended effect to silence dissent. That was the goal, and it worked. But I think this is still from The Nation, as they say, in making such a dubious claim, writers ignored evidence easily located in area newspapers that established the persistence of activism until the Vietnam War ended. I mean, there was mass protest and mass activism throughout that area, but throughout the nation. And these shootings did not actually stop it. They may have even increased it.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have, Neil Young makes that song, "Four Dead in Ohio," and everyone was like, Kent State. Like became kind of a battle cry of what they did. They just opened fire. Yeah, I remember people talking about that when I was a kid, even when I was in like high school in the 80s, their teachers were talking about it, and we're still obviously talking about it today. But it just seems like more, like we talked about when we did the JFK stuff, like back then they did these more strong arm tactics and more blatantly strong arm tactics of like assassination and, stirring up this riot so they can shoot the kids. And now they do more character assassination, or they just don't even let progressive. They bought everything. Now I'm sure Kent State is now, its board of directors has corporate people and CIA people on it. You know what I mean? Like that's what they've done now. The media has been bought, as we know. I mean, higher education, the courts, everything's just been kind of co-opted by the ruling elites and their various entities. And
yeah, and they've gotten more sophisticated with their ways of suppressing and crushing activist movements. It definitely used to be clumsy with just killing people. Not that there weren't other tactics, a lot of other tactics used, but nowadays it's less common that you'll see someone killed. It's more common that like with Occupy, they arrested the leaders and tried to make their life kind of about dealing with their court case. And they, filled the more prominent like squares, like Zuccotti Park in New York. They sent as many kind of mentally ill homeless people down there as they could, which, much to Occupy's credit, like these people were not just immediately kicked out. People tried to help them, tried to find ways to help them. But it's like once you have a place kind of half filled with a combination of plainclothes police and mentally ill people, it becomes quite difficult to have a peaceful, tent city going on as a protest. So it's like those type of things are far more common now than the shit they used to do.
Right. Yeah. Well, two solid segments about our fair country.
Two positive, upbeat segments. Hey, the protesters ended the Vietnam War. So
yes, the protesters ended the Vietnam War. There was some stuff that did get accomplished. I should say this before we go. I'm seeing in the chat that Jimmy has just gone live, and he's talking to Julian Assange's dad or something, that Assange is getting freed. I don't know if this is confirmed.
Well, Assange, I don't know about freed. So Assange's dad is touring the U.S. right now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know anything about Assange getting out. I mean, Biden would have to stop the appeal for that to happen.
Right. Unless he's just interviewing him. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the media right now that Assange has been freed. I guess it's just his dad is just advocating for his son, which makes sense. All right. Well,
I think it's always good for us to spread various rumors at the end of the show. It's kind of like dropping little seeds, just see what happens. Also, the Young Turks has disbanded. I don't know if you guys heard that. It's no more.
Cenk is in federal prison for bestiality. That is a confirmation.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. So someone said that. So it's just an interview. Let's settle down. Nothing's happened. We don't know. But as soon as we're done here, you guys can go watch that interview. Well, that's a fantastic. This show, I get so informed. I feel more, in touch with the world and with my, yeah, you know, we're doing good. I honestly, as bummed as I can get doing the show sometimes, just from this is from the subject matter is I do feel like we're both learning stuff, and then our audience is expanding their knowledge. So it's just really helping anybody wake up to.
Oh my God. I learn a lot of shit every week. Like I didn't know until I started researching this. I didn't know that there's credible evidence that someone ordered these trips to fire on the students.
Yep.
I mean, that kind of thing. I learn stuff every week. And on top of that, at the end of the week, after doing 900 stories during the week and redacted and everything else, I need someone to laugh through the tears with me. So this is perfect.
That's the whole purpose of this show. It's really more of a therapy session for both of us. So we can laugh about this shit rather than just stare into cameras alone going, it's all coming apart.
Rather just sleep. One eye twitching. It's guys, this is the big one.
One eye twitching. Like, there's no hope. All right. See you next week. Like it's tough to do that every episode. And then we get to do this one where it's like, yeah, we have a history of being awful. All right.
I'm going to switch this background to just like multicolored butterflies and like, flowers, bright flowers.
I wish I could have those like old school Disney birds like just land on my finger. Like, hey there, Mr. Hummingbird. How are you today? Want a government secret? And then we sing a song. We should have more songs in this show. It's the war on drugs. It's been fake, and we've known this far too late. Whatever. Just a fun song, and then
absolutely.
And then we dance. When we start doing the show on the road, we're gonna have to add a dance number.
A lot of dance, yeah, a lot of dance, like the tap with the cane, like the twirling cane.
Top hats. I want the whole thing.
It takes a village to rape and pillage. It's gonna be incredible. It's gonna be incredible.
Oh God, the CIA killed Kennedy, our last shot at freedom. Boom, well, great work as always, buddy. Where can people watch your dancing?
Yeah, the dancing. That's some videos that I hope have been wiped from the 1990s. But yeah, my stuff's at leecamp.com. New episode of Redacted tonight comes out tonight. And I just yesterday interviewed Noam Chomsky. That's at leecamp.com as well. He is a spry young 93 years old.
Oh.
So leecamp.com is the best place to go.
Outstanding, folks. Forks. Of course, you can go to grantmelwood.com. Ron and I are starting to announce tour dates. There's going to be ticket links on our websites. We're coming to a city near you starting in September. And of course, watch Political Vigilante. And if you're listening to this, like it, give it a positive review on iTunes or Spotify, share, subscribe, do all that stuff because, they're screwing with us. And go to rockfin.com. Lee and I both have our shows on Rockfin. It's blockchain. It's cryptocurrency. It is the future. They can't shut it down. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Have a great week.
All right, buddy. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.